Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is entrepreneur and Abraham Hicks fan Louis D'Souza. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Our friend Anne-Marie can't join us today. She's got a bit of a family emergency going on, so we'll be looking forward to having her join us again next week. But Louis is here, and wow, you got a new background there. I love the Alps. Is that, I presume that's the Austrian Alps, is that right?
Yeah, that's where I go every Christmas. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's like the scene from where you go, because it's gorgeous.
It's like the bedroom window view. Yeah.
Rough. Oh man, that's a tough way to
tough,
go. Yeah. Seriously, that looks beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And we're joined today by, whoops, what was that?
Oh, I was just going to say, you just point a camera anywhere and you get an amazing photo.
Yeah, well, I can't say I'm surprised. Yeah, but that's beautiful, no doubt. But we're joined today by Jamie Murray, who is an author. She's the author of the book It's Not About Love, at least not the way you think, which is actually a sequel to her earlier book, which I don't remember. Jamie, what was the name of the first book? I know you just told me, but I can't remember what the book was called.
That's okay. The first one was How Many Kids Do You Have?
How Many Kids Do You Have? That's the one, yes.
Very interesting titles, I must admit.
They are. They make you think, like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on in that head of Jamie?
Oh, gosh. I love in writing anytime that you pick up something that's everyday language, something we've all said a million times, but you add a different layer of meaning to it. And then every time you hear that phrase from now on, you're like, oh, wait, what?
Well, speaking of phrases, you also describe what you do in your writing as being centered around saying out loud what humans all over the world are managing in silence. That's an interesting phrase all by itself. What did you have in mind specifically when you were thinking of that?
Well, I've been called a loudmouth for most of my life, so there's that.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm always saying what everyone else in the room is just thinking. And it's been a blessing and a curse. And now I feel like I'm kind of using it as a strength and letting it help other people know they're not alone, right? I mean, that's the hardest part in life is we all live behind these closed doors and we think no one else in the world must be handling what I'm handling. And yet we really all are.
Okay, well, there's an interesting foundation right there. So I think there's probably a bit of a backstory to all this, particularly to the books, because books always have a backstory. Otherwise, we wouldn't be writing books in the first place. So tell us about the backstory.
All right. So backstory, my first book came out in How Many Kids Do You Have? And basically that was, I took everything that we had learned in the first 10 years of blending two homes and creating a family. And I tried to write the book that I didn't feel like I had at the time. And then about 5 days after that release, I found out that my husband was cheating on me.
Oof.
Yeah. So everything kind of exploded and derailed at that point. And then I basically just said, I'm going to write my way out of this, no matter what it looks like. I'm going to figure this out via writing. And the second book is what came of that. So here we are.
So it was almost therapeutic in a sense.
It was absolutely therapeutic. Yeah. And I really hope that it offers as much as it gave because, to have the opportunity to sit down and think through life on that intimate of a level at such a hard time, it was impactful.
I'm sympathetic to that kind of experience just because, as Louis knows and as listener knows, when I started this podcast a little over 10 years ago, I did it because I needed help. And I figured, well, I'll just bring on all these experts and they can teach me what I need to know because I'm not figuring this stuff out on my own. And it worked beautifully, by the way. But it is a little bit vulnerable. And the way I've expressed that in the past is, oh my God, I have listeners. Where did they come from? And all of a sudden you realize you're writing or speaking or in some way expressing for people that you don't even know, which is a little bit daunting. But if you're the kind of person who was always speaking her mind, I guess that isn't quite as challenging.
Well, this one was hard. I always try to write like no one is going to ever read it because that's where you get to the real parts and that's where you can say the things that everyone else can't say. And so, always writing as if no one can hear you, I think helps you open up. But then when it's time for everyone to read it, everyone can now hear you.
Mm.
And it was hard. It was vulnerable. That's the word for sure. But at that point, I'm so proud of me today. I'm so proud of, quite frankly, our marriage right now. I'm proud of my husband. I'm proud of our kids. So when it came out, we were all in such different places and we had a lot of conversations about it. And it helped everyone, I think, heal then.
Wow. That
Is
sounds
it
like quite a
the same
transformation.
husband, just for clarification? Is this still the same husband, just for clarification?
Oh, it is the same husband.
Okay. No,
It is the same husband. And
I was just unsure.
Something I really, really like to lead with is that this is not a how to save your marriage book. This is not a you should save your marriage book. These are not easy steps. This is not I'm going to fix your life, just buy this book. It's not about love, right? Like, so it's not about learning how to love yourself through someone else. It's a book about learning how to love yourself through you. And that wasn't a one-sided journey. And so I try to be very clear that that's why the marriage worked, right? That's why we're still married today, because both people invested in figuring out how to love themselves. And if that had not been the case, then there would not have been a marriage to save.
That's pretty big, actually.
Mm.
I mean, seriously, that's really, really big, because I can't honestly say that I know of a lot of couples who have been married and come from a place where they both needed to work on that and successfully did that. That's a fairly small subset. So that's pretty big.
I would agree. But I think maybe the whole goal in writing the book is that it doesn't need to be such a small subset. I think, again, our marriages may or may not move on, right? Like, regardless of what happens or who does what, we know right now we're living in a society that gives you a good 50% chance rate anyway. So, but underneath the marriage is still the family. And so even if the marriage does not continue, if you have kids, the family does. And so you still have to figure out how to heal and how to forgive and how to love yourself and how to move. So we're still doing all of these steps. If we're putting, if we're really putting healing before the cart, so to speak, right? Then we're still doing this work. It's just may or may not be with the same partner your whole life.
So you describe your journey as one where the two of you, both independently or together, I'm not really sure which, had to discover your love for yourselves in order to basically to save the relationship. And I guess one of the things that I always want to hear about when I hear a story about anybody who's discovering their own self-love is, how much of that was what you anticipated as you started writing the book, and how much of it, and what did it turn into as you got onto that path?
I had no idea I was writing about self-love. I really didn't. It didn't hit me probably until about halfway through the book. And then I started putting it all together. I'm kind of a cynical country girl. I mean, honestly, and it's just not in my wheelhouse to grow up talking about self-love. And that's not a value, especially in Texas, where people are like, hey, let's be real vulnerable and let's be super open and let's learn how to love ourselves. So it took me a long time to figure out that the qualities of self-love I very much identified with. I just had this kind of label applied to it that didn't let me understand what it meant. So I think, going back to your question, what was your question again?
Well, it was a two-part question. The first part was, did you start the book with the intention of writing about that? And you answered that one already, saying, no, I didn't even get into it till about halfway through and realized what I was writing about. And then the second half of it was about what you discovered along the way, essentially.
Yes. So I discovered that the word self-love isn't actually bullshit. I discovered that it really does matter how well we love ourselves, because that really does impact how well we love everyone else too.
Do you get the sense now that you have a better, maybe better is not the right word. Do you have a different idea of what self-love is compared to then? In other words, that self-love has a meaning that it didn't have for you before.
Yeah. A big meaning for me is that self-love, what I've come to appreciate it, is that it really regulates the crazy voices inside our heads. So it really helps those broken records that tell us we're not good enough, and that tell us, we don't deserve anything, and that tells us, oh, you just think you're better than everyone. You just always want too much, whatever your voices are, right? If you learn how to love yourself, those voices become less prominent. And then you aren't seeking the external need for validation from everyone in your life, because you've got it for yourself.
Well, that also ties into one of my favorite themes. Two of my favorite themes to address are self-love and our social connections, our connectedness to others, because I think they go hand in hand. And so here you are already tying the two together. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. But talk a little bit more about why you think that's an important thing. How did those connections, how did that relationship with others impact your understanding and development of your understanding about self-love?
Well, I think when I didn't know fully what the term meant, I believed the external voices in my life a lot more than I needed to.
Mm.
And then as I started to actually understand what those words really meant, I didn't allow those external answers to dictate my internal feelings so much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Because what you're really saying is that those external voices played more of a role in deciding who you were than you wanted them to, than you felt good about.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. The other voices had more influence than my own.
Yeah.
In my own
Okay.
life, right?
Yeah, that's actually the more direct way to say it. Because ultimately, like you were saying earlier, you have to love yourself in order to have other things improve, and you demonstrated that. Like, oh yes, we're improving. Each of us are improving the way we feel about ourselves, and lo and behold, look at that, our marriage is coming back together again. How cool!
Right? Yeah. Well, and I think specifically, and I'm trying to get real comfortable with just calling infidelity out and talking about it, because
Mm.
it's such a taboo topic, and yet again, so many of us are managing this. Either it's already ruined a marriage, it will ruin a marriage, it could ruin a marriage. I mean, it's out there. And so to be able to address the specific hurts that I think come with it, the idea of loving myself has helped that piece too. So things like triggers and boundaries and codependency and more of the crazy voices inside your head, just without, I guess, silencing everyone else's concept of me and only having my own vision, I've been able to heal more. And then when I'm healing, like, my kids are healing more.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I had a question, but my question just kind of changed because of what you just said. Let's try it this way. Why have you come to the conclusion that your self-love is no longer as dependent upon the opinions of others?
Why did I come to that conclusion?
Right.
I don't know if I had a why in mind. I just
Okay.
wanted to answer the question.
Okay.
You know,
Well, then I'll go. Then I will go back to the question I was
okay.
going to ask before. So the question I was going to ask before is, why do you think that there is so much resistance, so little willingness in society to discuss these things?
Shame, which is also cured by loving yourself better. I think we all carry the shame because we all think that we're the only one, and what is everyone going to think about us? And I write a little in the book about being raised by a mentally ill father. And he was mentally ill and an alcoholic. So there's a great combo. And being so ashamed of that. But then ultimately what I ended up learning from that experience is that you can't control how the rest of the world sees you. You know, you can never do that. So if you spend your whole life living for what other people think, then you're just really missing out on the opportunity to live your own life.
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases that I actually picked up by doing this podcast, I picked it up from one of the guests at some point, was what others think of me is none of my business.
I love that.
And when you express it that way, like, oh yeah, it's kind of a jarring shock the first time you hear it, but you think about it and you say, well, I guess, yeah. It's like you've never really thought about it before, but now that you're thinking about it, it kind of makes sense.
I don't think that we acknowledge quickly enough the impact that what other people think really has on us. I think that we think it doesn't have an impact on us, but we fail very often to recognize how other people's thoughts of us impact our habits in our own life.
I think it's also kind of part and parcel with caring about somebody. When you care about somebody, it's going to be a real challenge to separate in your own mind your caring for them from your caring about what they have to say about you.
Absolutely.
Because they're very closely related. Nevertheless, it is a skill we need to learn, but it's still going to be a challenge.
So something else I learned while writing this book, again, something we theoretically we know, but we don't fully embrace, was really acknowledging the role that our childhoods play on the adults that we become. You know, in those, especially, you know, kind of wanting to bulldoze my way through life most of the time, you start to believe that you're okay, that everything's fine, that you've moved on from that. That's my past. But then when moments that break you happen, and they happen to all of us, no one gets out without them, then we don't acknowledge what a role those very early memories, patterns, habits, you know, climates had on who we become.
Some people describe those as resistance points because of a couple things. First of all, because we're resisting that they're there. And second, because by hanging on to them, we're resisting where we want to get to, which is particularly ironic. But nevertheless, it seems to be a very consistent pattern. Why is it, though, do you think that we have such strong affect from those childhood experiences? I mean, psychologists have theories that they tell us about. I mean, it's all very well documented, but I think it's also interesting to know from the human perspective, what do we think about it? And that's why I'm curious to know what you think. Why is that so important?
Well, I have a part in the book where I talk about healing and what that looks like. And I compare it to sitting on a cactus, right? If you really badly need a seat, but you only have a cactus to sit on, you're going to take the seat, but it's going to hurt a little. And
now there's a Texas girl right there. I got to tell you.
So, but that's what healing is, right? Healing hurts a little. You know, we think that we want to heal so that we don't hurt, but you have to hurt in order to heal. Because, you know, you're taking that scab off, right? You're replacing it. And in order to do that, it's going to hurt. So generally, we will, I think, our human nature says, avoid the flame, don't go to the hurt. But what we have to get to a point is to learn that actually, if we're going towards hurt in the right way, and we're really being willing to face things, then going towards that hurt is going to help us in the long run.
Yeah, the word hurt is always problematic, I find, in these conversations. Because there are a lot of ways I can think of to look at this, but the way I'm looking at it right now is it kind of falls into the fight or flight syndrome experience, in that our minds, our subconscious minds, however you want to frame it, however you want to phrase it, are in some way trying to protect us from that imaginary mountain lion, which is rather odd because almost none of us ever have actual mountain lions in our direct experience. So we're reacting to stuff that really isn't there, but we're treating it like it is there.
I love that. But it is there until we know it's not.
These mind games are really, they can mess you up pretty good.
So absolutely. Another rabbit hole I'm going down a lot now is the NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and reading all about it. And really owning that, talking about hurt and is it fight, is it flight, but giving every feeling some space inside of you so that not any one feeling gets to make all of your decisions and your reactions. So being able to see, oh, okay, I see you hurt. You matter, but guess what? So does everyone else. And minimizing the role. I write a little bit of this too, specifically my journey with anger. I really had to learn to just be like, okay, anger, you don't get to rule the roost anymore. You're going to sit there sometimes. Maybe you aren't as useful to me as you used to be, and learning to rework the toolbox, Utility,
usefulness. Yeah, I like you bringing in that word, because there is another aspect to these negative reaction, negative emotions, negative thought patterns, and that is we don't have to think of them as negative. We can actually learn to appreciate them because they're doing things for us that at the time we're experiencing it, we say no, thank you, but later on we say, wow, I actually got something out of that.
Absolutely, yes. And wouldn't it be so cool if we could speed that time frame up? And
right. Well, that's the trick, right? Yeah. The trick is how quickly can we get to the spot where we're actually appreciative of it, so that we don't have to hang out in that painful spot.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the challenge.
It's taken me 42 plus years, so I'll let you know.
Yeah, 65 and counting over here, but yeah, I get you. Oh, Louis, of course, figured it out 35 years ago, but nevertheless, even he's also had those kinds of struggles. And that's my very backhand way of trying to bring him into the conversation. So what are you thinking about at this point, Louis?
I had this clarity about the subject come to me. And there's a difference between love and relationships. Now, you can love anything from your car to your dog to your spouse to your phone. But, if you wake up every morning in love, just because you've put yourself in that frame, said you've done the meditation, you've kind of put yourself in that place where you're feeling great. And then the difference is, let's say I use my partner to make me feel good. All right. And when she's pissed off with me, then she makes me feel bad. So she has now control over me feeling good, feeling bad, and all the rest of it. And, I'm not prepared to give anybody that power over me. So I've learned to do what you might be calling self-love. And I'm learning how to have love just pouring out of me, waking up in the morning, being passionate and happy, being focused, going where I want to. But, I'm not going to give anybody else the power anymore to make me feel good or bad anymore. And just, I'm taking that power into myself, and I will feel good whenever I want to feel good, and I know how to do it. I've got the tools, I've practiced, and it works, and, I just go for it. So, it's always amusing to me when somebody says, oh, you're talking rubbish, or I hate you, or whatever. I said, wow, I'm so glad you got an opinion on the subject. It's your problem. I don't care. It's not really anything to do with me. But yeah, think what you will. I don't care if people love me. I don't care if people hate me. Either way, it's their problem. It's nothing really to do with me at all. And it doesn't sound a particularly human thing, but once you've learned to really instill that love in you all the time and just express it and feel it, then it doesn't really matter, and people are drawn to you. They just come to you, and you don't even have to do anything. You don't have to hunt for the woman, hunt for the partner, hunt for this, hunt for that. The law of attraction just says, you're in a good mood, let's bring other people in a good mood, and off you go. And it's just so cool once you get it, once you understand it. But relationships, like my wife and I, we need to work on it. I'm not working on my love with her. I'm working on the love of myself, my self-love. But the relationship is what I work at. That's the work, and then you build up a strong relationship. You find the good give and takes, and you play all those games, and then you find a stable place where you can both be free to do, think, be, and express yourself in whatever way you want to, and the other one's prepared to let you do that too. It took me quite a while to get my wife to stop wanting to control aspects of my life, but it's normal for a lot of people to understand that that's what you kind of need to do. I've always just sat there and praised her and thought she's great and the best thing ever, and I've just left it at that. And then oh, you must do this, you must do that. And I said, no, I don't have to do anything, and when I'm right, when I'm feeling in the right place, and then everything will flow, and then I'll do it. And she's come to completely appreciate that in me now, and it's just beautiful. But it takes time for the relationship to understand how and where the other person is, and how everything can move together, specifically allowing her to have her self-love. She loves the garden, she loves this, so I give her time to do all the things that she loves, and I don't argue about it, I don't fret about it, I don't push or pull about it, and I just leave it. And I asked Isabel, she's my 15-year-old daughter, I said to her, have you ever been bullied at school? She said, never. My friend has. This has. Yeah. No, I've never been bullied. And, it's really interesting because this rubs off on the kids. The kids just understand how to be themselves, how to find their own love, and not worry about what other people are thinking and doing. And, it's just a great place to be.
Absolutely. I love that. Go ahead. I love the learning of the internal world versus the external world, and really learning, like you're talking about, how to turn down the volume when need be. And I think it's very easy in relationships. We don't always give each other enough time and space. And I don't think that's on purpose, but we become codependent in a healthy way, right? To make a marriage and family work. But we become codependent in a way that makes us kind of forget about who we are too in the process.
Interesting phrase there, codependent in a healthy way. Talk about what that meant to you.
Well, I think
working to each other's strengths, maybe.
The what?
Working to each other's strengths.
Yes.
That's kind of what we do in our relationship. She's good at the accounting and I'm good at the people talking, and it's we let each other's strengths work together. I don't know.
That is almost us exactly too. And yeah, I think marriage does require a little bit of a codependency. Really. I mean, if we think about it, right? Like, how else do you form this relationship with one other partner for the rest of your life? I mean, and want that person to be there for everything, and not get tired of that person. And not, we do from time to time, but I think you sort of have to become one, but then you also have to simultaneously remember who you are in the process by doing things just for you. And that can be hard sometimes to remember to do.
Not at all. Not at all.
Please share your secrets.
Your self-love is the secret.
Yes, I hope, man. I mean, I do find myself, reminding myself now in the moments. I think when kids are young too, like when we're families with young kids, it is just the hardest. It is so freaking hard.
In what way?
Well, they just need so much more of you. I think when your kids are young.
And up to what age are you talking about young? You're talking about 6 months, 1 year, 15 years?
Oh, I'm talking like 8, 10.
Okay.
We've got 4, so we've got 10, 14, almost 17, and 24. And I am so grateful now that we do not have young kids around. Like, I feel like my brain is coming back to me. You're not just constantly on call for all these little people in your life. And so point being, it makes remembering to put you first sometimes much easier, I think, as the kids get older.
Yeah, I mean, I've always talked about how I brought up my kids, but if they're able to do it for themselves, I don't do it. If they can, as soon as they're able to make a sandwich, they make their own sandwiches. As soon as they can get something out of the fridge, they get out of the fridge. As soon as they can lay the table, they're helping out in the house. I never do for my kids what they can do for themselves, and I think that has taken a lot of the pressure off me, a huge amount. And then my elder daughter, of course, helps look after the younger one and entertain, which is great. And then, we've got an open house policy. So just people come in all the time. It's like a railway station. We've got students here at the moment, speaking to Isabel in the lounge, and Eloise, my 8-year-old. And, they love having the students because they entertain them, and, vice versa. And, he's got a neighbor next door who sleeps over every Friday for Isabel's friend, and the other one comes around whenever. There's no rules. It's, knock on the door, and if you're available, you're available. If you're not, you're not. Game over. So, it's just a very open door policy, and come in, come out, have meals with us, stay over, and vice versa. It seems to start, although it's not very English to have sleepovers and things like that. Like the one that sleeps over every Friday, my daughter's only slept there once, and that was because of a birthday party. But this is the English. The English just don't do this kind of thing. It's not. I'm a South African, so it's a very different world out there. Everybody, you can knock on a South African's door at any time of the day or night, and they'd welcome you in, and give you anything and do anything for you. But not in this country. You'd be frowned on and thrown out in no time. But so, it's just how you create your life, what you're prepared to do. We got open doors. We have had, friends around every weekend for the last 3 weekends, and we've had fun. We played games. We've had, we've chatted, and it's just a very open door kind of policy. And it's just fun. And that's the way I want to live my life. I want to have fun, exciting, interacting. You can ask Walt. I've done a few weird and wonderful things in my life.
Just a few. Occasionally, here or there, like every year.
So, I'm always changing. I'm always looking at things differently. I'm always growing. I'm always seeing things differently. Like this idea of difference between love and relationship. I think it's key. It's absolutely important. And I never really understood it clearly until maybe a month or 2 ago. And it's like, wow, this is just so cool. It's really how it is. It's how it is. And, and this frees you up. The clarity in your life frees you up. And I'm looking for clarity all the time. That's my biggie. If there's anything I'm looking for, I want to get greater clarity. And I want to make it simple that anybody can understand.
Yeah, that's Louis' MO, by the way. Louis always, like for every story he ever tells, it always ends up with greater clarity. He's not kidding you when he says that. That's really, top of the line for him.
No, so I love that word, first of all. And do you come to a point then in that journey to clarity where you accept that this is a forever process? Like, I kind of consider it like working out. Like, if I'm going to start working out, I have to accept that I have to do that forever in order to maintain results. Or do you feel like you reach clarity and then you don't have to work so hard?
So there's 3 things that this is something new to me as well. There is the known, there's the unknown, and there's the unknowable. So the known is the physical universe, your partner, the things mostly what you're looking at TV and talking about and science and all the rest. It's the known world. Then you've got the unknown things like, are there ghosts or, and are there spirits and all the rest of it. And is there energy? I mean, I work with energy all the time, but I don't really know what it is. So it's kind of like an unknown quantity that I work with. We don't really know how electricity works, but we use it all the time. But, scientists will tell you they don't really understand how it works. And there's nothing moving in electricity. Everybody thinks electrons move, some they don't. Everything's completely static. It's just a potential difference on the different sides. But never mind. So it goes on. So that's the unknown. And then the unknowable is the things like, somebody says to me, why are you here? I'm sorry, it's just unknowable. Everybody's looked at this question from time immemorial. Nobody's really had a clear answer. I don't have one. I've looked at it from every angle. From the age of 8, I've been looking at that. It's just one of those unknowables. Somebody says to me, what's heaven? I said, don't know. I'm honest. I don't know. What's hell? I don't know. I just don't know. I'd just be honest with you. So there's the unknowables as well. And so out of that comes clarity. You start. I've given up on the unknowables from the point of view. The only thing I can understand is a source energy that is vibrating. That's about as close as I've gotten, the closest I've felt and experienced inside me. So that is the one of the core aspects. And then out of that, everything flows. So, and everything's really an illusion, isn't it? Because it's vibrations vibrating a different vibration. And that's all anything is. So you kind of getting to the stage of just letting it be free. What I can control is how I deal with something that happens to me, but the universe will always throw unknowns at me. Okay, so that is the dynamic that's going on. So, I feel comfortable and confident now, very confident. And Oswald, I think you'd say I'm confident. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. That's why I feel confident to actually tease him each time I bring him into the conversation, because I know it's going to go fine.
Tease me anytime you want to. So you've got this level of confidence not because I know what life's going to throw at me, not that I know I'm going to get sick or not sick or whatever, but I know that I'm able to deal with it. I've got tools. I've built up a repertoire. I've got the understanding and the strength to be able to deal with what life throws at me. So, that becomes very important, and that builds on your self-confidence massively if you know how to deal with things that are thrown at you. Like a lady the other day said to me, because I was driving in this country, you get these people. I was everything has to be done by the law, so there's quite a wide road, and you've got the bicycle lane and all the rest of it. And I was going to turn off left, and this other lady stayed on the proper lane and then turned off left. And I saw her, and I gave her a lot of space, and she turned, and then I turned after her, and we landed up at the same place at the end. So she got out and said, are you new here? Do you know how the roads is? I said, and I said, yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing. I saw you. I slowed down and all the rest. She says, but it's really dangerous. I said, I like danger. She said, oh my God. She just went off in a tangent. And then she saw me later on in the club, and she said to me, while I was leaving, because she saw me with my daughter, and she saw me getting along with well with everybody else, and she said, drive safely. And I completely ignored it. Completely ignored it. And then as I was walking out, she said, did you hear me? I said, drive safely. I completely ignored it and just walked up. Because I'm confident. I know what I believe. I know that what I was doing was safe. I know in my world it was all okay, because awareness is important, not safety to the rules of society. Okay? If you can follow all the rules in society, but if you're not aware, somebody will still bump into you. You'll still bump into somebody. So it's all about awareness, and society can't teach you awareness, but they can have the rules. Okay. But I like living by my rule, which is the keen awareness that you have about yourself, where you are, where you're going.
So how do we learn this awareness if society can't teach it?
Aha, there's an interesting question.
Why do you want society to teach it? Society is just an illusion out there that you're mirroring of.
I just want to learn it. I don't know how.
I'm just trying to point out that
asking for a friend.
Everything in your life is based on your perception. Okay, so the physical body is a vibrational interpreting machine. Think about that for a second. What does that mean? Can you see if you can work it out?
It means we all have energy levels, frequency levels.
So what part of your body can perceive vibration?
All of it, right?
Yeah.
Perceive
What are they? Yeah. What did you say?
I was thinking of the difference between feel it versus perceive it.
Okay. So feel it would be your hands. You feel things with your hands. You see things with your eyes. You can see different colors are different vibrations. You can hear different sounds are different vibrations. Feeling different textures, different vibrations. Tasting with your tongue, different vibrations. Those things are called your 5 physical senses. Okay. So you use those to perceive anything. You know, you think you're touching somebody, but not. You're just being aware of what you're feeling in your hands. That's all you can perceive. So everything is an inside job. Love is an inside job. Okay. What I mean by that is, you can build up your love, you can be in love, but you don't need anybody else out there, as I've talked about before. So, once you understand all these little aspects of how everything works, you start being able to control what's going on to a degree. But again, it's more controlling how something happens to you and how you deal with what happens to you, but not when and what happens to you. So you get to that place of really keen understanding. But it's been a journey I've spent from the age of 8 to now getting there. And I tried to explain it simply, but it's, there's aspects to it and aspects to it and aspects to it. But simply put, what was your question? Your question was,
how do we learn to perceive?
How do you learn to be more aware? Okay. So what is awareness? Awareness is just a keen understanding of life. And when you understand life, you start understanding the different components, the different aspects of it. And then when that happens, you start really having a very, very clear understanding of what's going on, and clarity comes into your life, which equates to awareness. So the greater and greater awareness you have, the greater clarity you have. And most people haven't spent much time thinking about why I'm here, where am I going, what am I doing? But I couldn't get anywhere in my schoolwork because every teacher I said, why are we here, where are we going, what are we doing? They went, huh? My mother went, huh? And so I realized I had to find all this out for myself. So I haven't got the unknowables. They're still unknowable. But I have got a lot of things that I now clearly understand. And they make you much more really confident, not false confidence, egotistical confidence, etc. But you really understand. It's been clear to you as night and day, and how to deal with things. So you don't let other people affect you or bother you. Like this lady, I could have let her bother me all day, and I could have worried about what she was thinking and am I right, am I wrong, is she right, am I wrong, who's wrong? I didn't let any of that bother me. I just said, I know what I believe. I know my awareness is key, and I'm not going to let anybody affect me. And that is really deep inside me. It's, I didn't even have to work on it. I didn't have to try. I didn't even have to think about it. It just happened. And my daughter said, my 8-year-old daughter said, she really needs to mind her own business, doesn't she, Dad? You can see she's my daughter,
Well,
and I just like, wow.
that is, I feel like exactly kind of what this journey has been for the last, well, I say a few years, 30 years, it depends, right? But it's really learning how to mind your own business. I kind of have a story about that one later, but but really understanding that you don't need that dependence on everyone else. You don't need their opinions as much. And for me, the way that I really learned how to do that, because it was like I knew where I wanted to get, which is exactly the state we're talking about, but I didn't know the how to get there. And for me, learning about rewiring your brain and kind of creating new patterns and habits, when I could put sort of a science to the understanding of that was a good how for me. So it helped me get through that hurdle of going, okay, I know where I want to be, but how do I get there? A lot of the neuroscience readings and study has helped a lot for me there.
Yeah, I got lost with neuro-linguistic programming and I left it quite quickly.
I needed answers, right? Like I love the scientific with the spiritual piece.
Absolutely. I've as a kid, I've always had a problem with psychology and psychologists, more importantly, not necessarily psychology. Some people can have some good psychological, philosophical understanding. I'm quite enjoying Jordan Peterson at the moment. He's amazing. I don't know if you guys know him. No. He's used to be a professor at Harvard. He's a Canadian. And he's very much about helping at the moment, and he's very public at the moment. You'll find millions of stuff on YouTube on him, helping the young white male deal with this endless attack that they have on being, bad people. It's because you're a white and you're young and a male, you're bad. So he's helped so many people with that, and he gets quite emotional about how little he has to do to help them.
I do know who he is. Now, the name I didn't recognize, but I recognize the gig that you're describing. Yeah.
And he's so passionate about helping people and all the rest of it. But because he's helped people and he's had a very clear idea what he believes and he expresses it, he's now being attacked by the board that has given him the degree in Canada. And he's taking every step that they do very publicly. And so they have to tread extremely careful because he's got millions and millions of followers, and they really have to look. And he's been so open about it. He says, this is how I feel. I'm speaking to my daughter. This is what I'm having to deal with. And he's for a whole hour, he explains exactly how they've attacked him on each different subject and topic. He's have to wade through this for hours, and never mind. And his daughter says, well, just let them take away your thing and come to America, and they'll give you a degree in Florida or something, professor. It really doesn't matter, But so they're just breaking down the whole thing. But he says, no, I'm going to run away from this fight. I've spent so much money and time getting this professorate, etc. I want to defend it, and so he's taking it every step. And he calls them names and all the rest of it, appropriate names. But he really lays it down exactly who they are and what they're doing, how woke they are, and and what they're thinking, and all the rest of it. And he's brilliant at it all. So I've got a lot of time for this guy. But so there are certain people who I have a respect for. But the problem with psychology, I've always felt, is they think people are broken and they want to fix people. And to fix them, they focus on what they've done wrong or what they're thinking that is negative in their minds. And you can't think of that for more than 17 seconds without amplifying it, or 14 seconds. So, they spend hours down in that drain, and all you're going to do is get more of the same. So, I've had very little time. I always said go speak to a friend rather than going to a shrink, but, I have
the friend, but I get your point.
That's hilarious. So I have an actual whole chapter about counseling.
Oh, right. You like it, do you?
I do.
It depends on the person who's doing it. There is a place for it, but it depends very much how they do it.
Does, but I do think there's some strength in saying something out loud. I think there's.
Tell it to your mother, father, brother, sister, lover.
Oh no, they can't help you. Are you kidding?
I hope my family tells me everything. I mean, I know when my daughter's best friend's having her period and how the problem she's having with it, and I know everything.
we have some of those conversations.
But it's all because there's no judgment from me. I don't judge anybody. Who am I to judge anybody? There's just no point. So all I do is I listen, and then I give them my feedback on my philosophy and how I would think about it, and then I let go. Take it, leave it. Who cares a shit? That's the best I can do. I'll stay positive. I'll stay happy, and if you're ready, come to me, because then I can help you maybe get in a more positive state, because I'm going to stay positive. I'm not going to come down to your level ever. I'm not going to. Come up. That's all I'm going to say. Come up to me. Come.
I love it. You said something earlier, Louis, and it's been kind of rattling around in my head while you've been
Ooh,
going
that's
on here.
scary,
It's
Walter.
yeah, but it's a good kind of rattle. I like it. It's the kind that shows there's something actually up there, which is a good thing. But no, the thought that was going through my head was you were talking about how we have the knowable, or the known, the unknown, and the unknowable, and the known being everything we can detect with our physical senses. It did occur to me there's something else that we do have, though, that allows us to perceive. And this could actually become a little bit muddy because it comes down to how you define the word perceive. But for me, one of the things that we have, I'll call generically inference. In other words, our ability to take our knowledge about what we have in our five senses and infer stuff that may or may not be there. And in fact, it becomes the basis for conversations like this one. Because if all you have is just the data of the five senses, it's great data, but there's not a lot of cognition going on there. Cognition requires a person.
So the way it works is the five physical senses are the vibrational interpreting machine, and the interpretations all go into the brain. And then the mind analyzes it and comes up with conclusions, ideas, and where you want to move forward.
That's what I'm calling the inference.
You could say there's another sense, which is the fifth sense, or your sixth sense. Sorry, your sixth sense, which you kind of it's more of a genetic or a memory thing, because we think we can remember a lot, or the internet knows a lot, but your great grandmother's nose is on your face. So each cell has an incredible amount of memory in it, gargantuous amounts of how to build a body, and how to create this, and how to make hair, and how to keep your heart. There's all this knowledge that is inside, that is all in one cell, just in your genes, which is just amazing. So you've got, and then when you take your vibrational interpreting machine and you use meditation or whatever, you can start tuning into different areas. You can tune into Hitler, Gandhi, cosmic power, force, energy, whatever subject you want. But you're now starting to learn how to take this vibrational interpreting machine and tune the dial to the different stations. Right. And then you have the cosmic download, as they call it, on different subjects, which you may never learn how to play music, but some people just tap into the universal force of music, which they can do. They can tune into that station, and then they get the download, and then they can start playing a musical instrument which they could never play before. And there are incidences and on YouTube and other thing you can find experiences of people who've done this. But you need to understand the process. You need to understand how life is, how it works, how you're going to use it. But a lot of people haven't spent much time looking into this at all. It's just not important to them. I said to two girls the other day, some other students, I said, have you ever thought why you're here? They both looked up. What's it? Neuro-linguistic program, leftist in the past, isn't it? So they went and thought about it for a second. Both of them said, no, never thought about why I'm here. And I said to them, when I was at school, I couldn't study anything. I want to know why I'm here. Teach me why I'm here. Then I'll study anything you want. I'll learn all your maths, history, biology, science. But first tell me why I'm here. So I said to the students, I said, you've been wandering around like this. Your hands over your eyes for those who are in the podcast.
Thank you. On behalf of the listeners.
And they were saying, yeah, I suppose I have. I hadn't thought about why I'm here. But
again, that's why I said that one of our abilities to perceive is inference. It's our ability to apply our conscious mind.
Define inference for me and the listener, maybe.
I'm kind of picking a word to use generically to describe the ability that we all have to consciously pick what it is we're going to give our attention to and how we're going to combine things together.
Oh, okay. So the magnification of the focus. All right.
Okay. That's one way to do it. Sure. Yeah. I mean, the point that I'm making is because we have
never thought of inference in that term, so I'm glad I asked you to define.
Okay, good. The reason I'm even bringing it in this way is it's my way of saying, because we have that ability to take all this data and put it together whatever way we want to in our minds, that's one of our superpowers. That's one of our great abilities. And that great ability is, in my mind, where we begin to answer the question that Jamie asked. Because Jamie asked, well, how do you learn this? You learn this by learning how to take all this stuff and put it together and create forms out of it and create ideas and create structures and concepts. And all. That's how you do it. You do it by doing that. That is the activity of learning how to apply this in the way that you were talking about earlier.
You know what I find really interesting as well? Sorry, Jamie, I'm taking over here, but as I often do.
He's very good at it, by the
way. Is if they're teaching at school anything that Google can answer, they're wasting our kids' time. If you are creating an education system that is based on how much you can remember something a couple of hours or days before you write a test, I don't have time for that kind of rubbish. You need to teach your kids now to do something that a robot cannot do much better, faster, and more thrifty and clearly, and all the rest of it. I'm waiting for the robots. I want them. I don't want to make my bed in the morning. I'd rather somebody goes and makes it. I want to make my tea in the morning, or rather somebody else makes it. I've got no problem with it, but you need to be in a position to do something that they can't do.
So I can absolutely.
And the school system needs to change massively, the educational system, to catch up with where we are today. Because, Elon Musk has got a warehouse full of arms and legs, literally. I'm not just joking. Yeah.
Well, he always was a bit weird, let's be honest. He's from South Africa.
No, those robots are going to come out. They're going to do things like you've never seen. Have you played with GBI?
No, what is that?
There's an artificial intelligence website you can go to, and it'll create a website for you. I said to it, I want to create a soap website, which I want to do for my wife, etc. They're making soap, and I want to sell them as a little small business for my daughter to start. To helping her with the world of business. So I said to build me a website based on healthy soaps for a teenager, etc., etc. And it manifests the site. It creates the pictures, doesn't go out and finds them. It creates the pictures, artificial intelligence wise, because it knows what a piece of soap is. It creates it, puts it all together, created me this website with, I asked it for different pages, contact, this and that, sales page, etc. And it created it all for me. And I was like, kids at school, they're not doing their you just say to this program, you'd say to it, give me a thesis, a synopsis on Romeo and Juliet, act scene 3, scene 2, whatever. And it'll do it all for you. And they can just take a copy and put it in. And and you can say it from a perspective of a 16-year-old. And it'll do it for you. So, and people are using this in the business world all over the place. They're using this free software that's out there at the moment. So, you really have to be very careful now what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Well, so as a former high school English teacher, I have to say,
you'd be impressed. That's what I would say to you. You'd be very impressed at what this would come up with. And I do not believe you'd be able to tell it was not your students. Maybe.
And perhaps, right?
Except,
but then you're not tricking anyone but yourself, because then the student has just missed out on
No. But the education system's tricking you, thinking that this is important. And a software program can do it.
I think that what we're trying to learn is to learn how to learn.
Are
right?
you? That's not what I've seen in my teachers teaching me.
I've had both. My kids have had both. It's like any field, right? There's good ones, there's bad ones. There's worked ones, there's all kinds, but ultimately a good teacher can change a life. A robot will never be able to do that.
You don't think so?
Ooh, I wouldn't bet on that.
I mean,
I'm not saying it's not here yet, but I wouldn't want to rule that one out.
Hello, computer. Sit down, take a seat. "Oh, what's your problem today?" And you
And maybe
tell
it would
them,
be easier to
tell
talk to
this
because
impassionate, non biased individual all your problems. And you go, "Oh, I think you'd be quite could
so would
work
you go
quite
to a
well."
robot counselor if not a real
I
counselor?
would
Would you
never go to a
to
counselor.
not
If I
even a
need to go to a
robot?
counselor, I'm already so screwed.
We're all screwed up.
I'm not.
Oh.
No. There are people who aren't screwed up in this world. Everybody thinks everybody's broken, and it's not necessarily true. There are people who are really bad together. I'm not saying I don't experience contrast. I don't know if you know about the emotional guidance scale.
No.
So if you're depressed, if you go into revenge, I hate this freaking person, it's making me feel depressed, etc., etc., you feel better. And if you go from revenge to rage, you feel better. If you go from rage to frustration, you feel better. If you go from frustration to I don't care, you feel better. If you go from I don't care to hope, you feel better. If you go from hope to expectation, you feel better. If you go from expectation to excitement and passion, you feel better. If you go from all of that to clarity at the top of the positive emotional guidance scale, you feel better. So what I'm trying to say is you need to move yourself up the scale slowly, because if you're telling a depressed person to go happy, the gap is too big. So if you tell them to go into revenge, not telling them to stay there, go into revenge, then they'll feel better. Then you work them up the scale. But psychologists don't do that. They don't understand it. They don't recognize it. So they don't do it. But to me, that's exactly how it works. I think on Death and Dying, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the 5 stages of death, 5 stages of dealing
Grief.
with death.
Grief.
It's brilliant because she works up the emotional guidance scale. She understands it and she puts it out there, and people start getting it because it's to do with death, etc. But the understanding and the clarity of this kind of education has always been there. We have to go out and find it if we're ready and we're willing and we're able and we've heard about it and you've now been exposed to it. A lot of things that I've said to you today, you won't be able to rub out of your mind, because you've been exposed to it. And that's what exposure does. It puts things in your mind which you can't rub out no matter how much you'd like to. Even if you'd like to say Louis talking a whole lot of rubbish, it's going to sit there and it's going to what is he saying? Maybe is it, it's going to worry the mind. So I like getting things out of the box, getting the genie out of the box and letting people play with it if they want to. And if they don't, I don't mind. I'm not attached to the result. It's just your business. But I just get a lot of passion about sharing it. So as you can see, it's just the way it is.
Welcome to the rabbit hole.
I use that. I love that phrase. I use it all the time. Every time I'm about to enter into a thought process that I know I cannot get myself out of. Yes.
Yeah, if you're trying to solve a problem with the same mindset that you created the problem, you won't be able to get out of it. Didn't Einstein say something like that? You need to change how you think before you can get a proper solution.
It sounds like something
smart. He was smart.
Either that or else he was crazy. One or the other. I haven't quite figured out which one it is.
He tapped in. He knew how to tune his physical body, his vibrational interpreting machines into different stations. Yeah, and he got these downloads.
Yeah.
And he ran naked through the streets because he was so chuffed with this incredible idea.
Mm-hmm. I continue to be amazed by the stuff that he wrote. I mean, quantum physicists are still trying to figure out today what he said. They're still trying to explain it to each other, let alone to us. And he wrote and said all that stuff 100 years ago. Like, whoa, that's quite a legacy right there, all by itself. Never mind the theory of relativity. Just to have that level of mind-bogglingness still affecting people 100 years later, that's a legacy. That's a man who really was tapped in. I mean, I said that he was crazy. To me, crazy is actually a positive term. It's a term of, wow, where did that come from? It's mind-blowing crazy is what it is.
I mean, if you just think of Elon Musk, he's really crazy as well. The amount of confidence the guy has got, when he lost those billions the other day, he didn't blink an eyelid. Who cares? It didn't even say
Well,
he cares. It just didn't bother him at all.
Let's be honest. When you have 150 million of those, you lose 45. You don't care. It doesn't matter.
No, we're talking billions here. Don't use the word million. Come on.
No, million billions.
Billion trillions. Yeah. And now he's the richest man in the world again. Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, he's a fellow South African, so it's like, wow. You probably don't know that, but he's a South African.
Yep.
I do now.
Mm.
And he's still crazy after all these years. Oh no, that was Paul Simon. Never mind. Anyway, we're well over time. But I wanted to keep going because this was so good. I'd love to go another hour, but unfortunately, we do kind of limit it to an hour, and we all have commitments and so forth. But Jamie, first of all, let's circle back to where we talked about at the beginning. The book is called "It's Not About Love." Yes. And it has the subtitle, "At Least Not the Way You Think of It." Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And I presume that's available everywhere?
Amazon, get it. Yes, everywhere.
Okay. Where are you available? How do people find out about you?
Website, jamiemarieauthor.com. And then I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I am not the best at the social content. So those are my two. I stick to it. They work. I'm trying to get my daughter to work on my TikTok account. So maybe if I can motivate her for free, she will wrap that up for me.
Or just get some of the software Louis was talking about. Just have,
have
the AI
just run it for you. They can write the whole book for you.
Yeah, right.
Okay. That's my next call.
There you go. So that's good stuff.
I asked it to explain the law of attraction, and it did quite a good job, actually.
Yeah.
Really? What did it say?
Yeah, you can go and have a look yourself. It's quite long.
It gave you a long one. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's not like just saying to Google Dictionary, like define law of attraction or something. It literally takes all the sentences and words that you say. I've really been wondering what is the law of attraction thing. And then it'll give you something based on how you've stated the question. It's quite fascinating. It really isn't the same as Google.
Fascinating stuff. As usual, we can always count on Louis to bring something really cool and interesting and new and just deep into the conversation. But Jamie, you brought some pretty good depth yourself. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your story and sharing your elements from your book and your journey. That's really what we were talking about, was the journey.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time, the invite, everything.
And like I like to do with all the people who come onto the show, because everybody who comes onto the show is a giver, and you're certainly one. Many people have read your book. They've consumed your stuff. You've been on podcasts. They've heard you. They've received information from you, and a lot of them you'll never meet, you'll never see, but you've helped them in ways that you never even knew about. So I like to make it a practice to point that out and say thank you on behalf of those that you've never met and that you'll never see, for everything that you've been doing and everything that you continue to do.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you very much. And Louis, we appreciate you constantly every week. But once again, thank you for everything that you do. That even for
we love you too, Walt.
Yeah, for all those people who benefit from you too. I mean, and the legions of people who benefit from what Louis says, they all basically say the same thing. What did he just say? So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.